Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Now, livestock reforms in Nigeria aim to modernize and commercialize the sector, address issues like conflicts between farmers and herders, improve productivity and strengthen the overall value chain. Now, these reforms often involve promoting ranches and grazing reserves, better access to veterinary services, and modern farming techniques. The goal is to create a more productive, sustainable, and resilient livestock industry that benefits all stakeholders. Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will focus on livestock reforms and development. But before we meet our guests, let's get to see this report put together by correspondent Yusuf Jika.
Nigeria's livestock industry is diverse with a huge potential across its value chains, from all the farmable animals, though mostly being practiced in a traditional method with few embracing the modern techniques. The sector is contributing 5% to the nation's gross domestic product, with millions of people driving several arms of jobs as livestock producers, processors, transporters, marketers, veterinary services, dairy, feed and fodder, tannery, among others. Livestock farming is not without some challenges which are affecting the growth of the industry. These are animal health and disease, breed improvement, feed and fodder, access to capital, insecurity, and transportation. To further transform the sector into a global, competitive, and climate resilient, the newly established Ministry of Livestock Development by President Bola Tinubu, led by Idi Mukhtar Maha, is walking the talk and changing the narratives with a pilot project for revamping the 417 grazing reserves in the country, resuscitation of the National Veterinary Research Institute VAM to produce 1.2 billion doses of vaccines annually across the range, access to finance, when direct foreign investments to put the industry in its right footing. Orders include breed improvement, boosting feed and fodder, organized focus group discussions to embrace modern farming techniques, efforts to modernize abattoirs, and rejig of livestock-related industries, among others.
Is to transform that sector into a vibrant, sustainable, globally competitive, climate resilient sector that will cater for national food and nutrition sovereignty, create jobs, reduce poverty, as well as bring it into the formal sector.
Major private sector players have also indicated remarkable interest to inject more resources within the industry's value chain.
It's a facility that will produce like over 1,000 cattle per day, and also 3,000 sheep and goats, and also we have storage facility of chicken for like 200 tons, the same thing with fish, and also we still have fish pond in here that we can store in 100,000 fingerlings.
With this, the stage is now set for significant changes and progress in this crucial aspect of the Nigeria's economy. In Abuja, Yusuf Jika.
Well, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's introduce our guests. We'd like to welcome to this program the Minister of Livestock Development, Idi Mukhtar Maha. Minister, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, Cyril. Thank you.
Right.
Good evening, all.
We're joined by Professor Ari Mekano, who is President, Feed and Fodder Multi-Stakeholders Forum. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure to be part of this conversation.
Right.
Good evening.
Let me also welcome Professor Hamidu Sharubutu MNI, the immediate past Executive Secretary of the Agricultural Research Council. Thanks for being here, Prof.
Thank you, and welcome, Nigerians.
And then we're also joined by Roland O. Oro, Managing Director, Commodities Development Initiative and Project Director, Nigeria Red Meat Partnership. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Right. So tonight it's all about livestock reforms and development, and hopefully somewhere along the line we'll get to open our phone lines and also take a number of your tweets as the program goes interactive, but that would be after some time. But for now, let's establish the very basis of what we're looking at tonight, which is livestock reforms and development, as I introduced. And let's start off from the minister himself. Well, Minister, at the creation of the Livestock Ministry, just about a year, late last year, I should say, there was hope that it would address the numerous problems around that sector. So we'd like you to update us on what has happened so far since this ministry was created.
Thank you, Cyril. The creation of the ministry happened on the 4th of June last year, and by October, Mr. President found me worthy to lead that new ministry. Since then, we've been able to form a team. We've been able to establish an organizational structure, and has also been able to look at the different policy documents that were quite disparate, isolated from each other, and have brought them all into one, looking at also the policies that preceded the creation of the ministry, and have consolidated all those into a single strategy that today we call the National Livestock Growth Acceleration Strategy. This was graciously approved by the National Economic Council at its 149th meeting. That for us is a very big achievement, it's a very big endorsement of our efforts so far. And that is to say that if you look at, before the ministry was created, there were attempts to reorganize the livestock sector. These two programs were cattle-centric. One was the Ruga policy that had an emotional backlash. The second was the National Livestock Transformation Plan that became inactive after 3 attempts in different states, Kaduna, Adamawa, and another state where it was also launched. With limited success. From there, it went into comatose. Then we looked at those policies and the documents supporting them. We also looked at the very rich Professor Tairu Jega committee report on the reforms, Presidential Committee on the Reforms of the Livestock Sector, that had dissected the entire sector, came up with all the challenges, strengths, weaknesses, SWOT analysis, and also recommended a number of measures that add into almost 300. We looked at those, sifted the low-hanging fruits, and then came up with that National Livestock Growth Acceleration Strategy that has been approved. Now, for us, that is the bedrock. Without plan, you plan to fail. So here we have gotten a very solid plan that has addressed all the sectors, the nitty-gritty. It was very broad and deep as well. Now, having done that, we've also inventorized all the grazing reserves in the country and have digitized them. What do we mean here? Since the first grazing area was created in 1957, before independence, till date, there hasn't been any concerted, deliberate attempt to rehabilitate those grazing reserves so that they really answer their name in terms of accepting cattle livestock keepers to remain there and remain there for good. So that hasn't happened. Today, I want to announce, with all sense of humility, under the Renewed Hope project, the Renewed Hope agenda of Mr. President, we have launched the journey. We kick-started it at Wase Grazing Reserve in Plateau State, where we have launched the journey of rehabilitating the grazing reserves so that all livestock keepers can go in there and remain legally belonging to them with all the necessary infrastructure to keep livestock. There, again, we have done this one. And along the line also, we have been able to do a lot of stakeholder engagement across the country. Of course, we have not visited all the states, but we have visited many of the political, geopolitical zones and have held conversations with the subnational leadership. We've held conversations with key stakeholders. We have also inspected a lot of moribund livestock structures that have been built since pre-independence. We have taken inventory of those, and we are in the position now to advise on a business model to revive them. As a result of those engagements, particularly, there has been a national consensus. Before the establishment of this ministry by Mr. President, there were only 2 or 3 states that had similar ministries of livestock. As of today, that idea has resonated. We have about 16 states in the country with similar ministries of livestock development. If that is not a consensus, I want to know the definition.
All right.
It goes to show that Mr. President's singular strategic action has resonated with the subnationals, and that is the way to go.
All right, so it's been a very busy time since June last year. But let's come to Professor Adi Mekano, who's president of Freedom for the Multi-Stakeholders Platform. And before the creation of this ministry, a lot of issues in the livestock industry were coming on board. How have you assessed, within June to this period, how have you assessed the impact or the likely impact of this ministry?
I'd like to begin by congratulating the Honorable Minister for starting in the very right direction. We have been having very impulsive reaction to the issues of the feed and fodder and, in fact, the livestock sector in the total. But for the very first time, we are having a ministry that is focused on starting with planning, taking inventories of activities that has to happen. You have heard from the minister, and I'd like to say that with all sense of humility, the very first time I met him, I could see leadership coming up strongly. First, because at the very top, there's a political leadership. There's a commitment from government to insist that the right thing must be done in the way, the manner that the industry will grow with more of private sector participation, which is very, very key. Second, we've seen in the minister a leader who wants to participate in every aspect of the activity, from planning. In the 2 occasions that we sat, reviewing some of the strategic documents, he never came to just do official opening and leave. He stays and engages with us all through the planning process. That's the beginning. That we've never had in the past. Now, what are the core issues? Whether we like it or not, the central issue around the livestock sector is about the principal component that keeps the sector alive, that is feed and fodder. And I can say without that all the emphasis there, the commitment of government, the sincerity of purpose has been demonstrated. First, we're having the first feed and fodder policy that has gone through the route. All stakeholders engagement, participation by various groups, and a very inclusive process. Now we're having a clean document supported by international systems like the African Union Bureau for International Animal Resource. And that is the foundation for solving the problem of the Nigerian food sector. For instance, it has been very impulsive to imagine that you can go and do an intervention in an area where you don't have evidence-based facts. So what the document speaks to us is for us a guidance and a roadmap of how every member of the value chain can engage, especially in the feed and fodder sector. Secondly, because of the collaboration created by the current ministry and, of course, the SY ministry with other sector players, we're able to see a cohesion between regulators of the industry coming together to have a common focus that will enable for the growth of the sector in the manner that it will resonate with every player. Importantly, too, that I need every Nigerian to understand is that for the first time we're having a feed inventory that tells you clearly that in this part of Nigeria or in this sector of the country, this is what we will have. And that has always been the gap. You need to be able to say that this is your feed gap, so that whatever you are doing is for you to be able to look at how you can be able to close up that gap, the demand and supply gap. And of course, we have also seen a larger opening for export potentials, especially in the feed and fodder sector. We are having scenarios where countries around the Middle East, Europe, are coming to engage with us in the production of what we used to think that are not important. That's the feed and fodder thing. You would rather farm this and that. Now we are seeing farmers coming to say, hey, we want to devote our land to farm alfalfa, Daffia, and the rest of it. This is the beginning of the promotion of a better and a greater Nigerian livestock industry. And it also need us to understand that this sector goes beyond the idea that we are supplying to meet our local nutrition needs. It is symbolic in many respects. Symbolic in the sense that the Nigerian state is under siege because of that critical factor of feed and fodder. It's a common resource that a lot of the farmer and the farmers are fighting for. Now, we're also seeing under this document that the present government is putting in place a potential for the inclusive participation of women, children, and many other sector players in the use of what we call a circular economic process. Waste materials are now going to be converted into feed resources. So you can see that a lot of young persons, especially women, who are largely involved in the processing aspect of agriculture, will now be meaningfully engaged, and they now become actors in wealth creation. We look forward to more and more of this robust engagement with the ministry, and we hope to see better from it.
All right, thank you so much, and we'll look at some of the things you've said here in greater detail as we progress. But let's come to Professor Sharubutu, and easily for you it would be looking at the establishment of this ministry and its activities so far, where it's been able to impact or unlock the opportunities in this sector and also create value chains.
Thank you very much. As I'm a veterinary surgeon by training, and we form part of the early birds for the call for the creation of this ministry from time immemorial. Because in the first instance, we looked at the history of the development of livestock from northern Nigeria, the northern region. And we appreciated the fact that a separate ministry at that time was able to bring forth, developments within the sector. The popular Moroccan leather, the trans-Saharan trade, all these gave, a link to the fact that having a separate ministry for livestock will actually do us good. And we have been advocating for it. So for us, the creation of the Federal Ministry of Livestock Development is a dream come true because we all urge for it. And if you look at it, livestock is just a name. A name because there are so many components. If you talk about agriculture, you are also talking about a name because agriculture, of course, comprises the livestock as well as agronomy. And if you talk about agronomy, you find so many species of crops or commodities that come out of it. But when this ministry was just one, as Minister of Agriculture, you can see a downplay, in the contribution of the livestock sector. It was virtually non-existent. I am coming from the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria, and I can tell you quite frankly that before the creation of this ministry, and of course, as at now, from the effort that is being made by the ministry, we are beginning to have bills at the National Assembly for the creation of other agencies that will serve the purpose of this. But before then, we only had the National Veterinary Research Institute as well as the National Animal Production Research Institute. These are the only two research institutes that were actually vested with the responsibility for livestock development. One for production of vaccines and medicaments, and the other one for breed improvement. But as a way of showing the fact that nothing much has gone into this sector, the vaccines that we have developed from time immemorial are the vaccines that we are still relying on. Secondly, we only succeeded in developing a breed of a species, and that is the poultry, that is the Shika brown. These are the only species. But if you look at comparatively with the crop sector, you find out that so many varieties of crops have actually come up. That tends to show you the concentration of the government then in the area of agriculture as well as livestock. Now, I have gone through the document that was presented by the Honorable Minister to the National Economic Council, and you can see the robustness in terms of, first of all, even the diversification of the name livestock in itself. We are now talking about, bringing commodities out of the livestock for individuals to actually appreciate. Before now, the failure of the Ruga program as well as the National Livestock Transformation Program was because some people felt that some of their commodities were not actually involved. People were not hearing things about sheep farming, they were not hearing too much about goat farming, they were not hearing so much about poultry, but everything was concentrated on cattle. With the establishment of this ministry now, it is my belief that Nigerians will now come to know that there are a lot more in the livestock as a name than just cattle.
Because I would have said perhaps added to the question of the concentration on cattle, there was also the political underlinings about why you needed the Ministry of Livestock. And if I recollect, the early days where there was opposition to the creation of this ministry, you actually had people saying, why do you need a Ministry of Cattle? Oh, well. But that again, we'll talk on that as we go on. But for the MD of the Commodities Development Initiative and the project director of Nigeria Red Meat Partnership. Now, this, a lot of people would need to know more about the Red Meat Partnership from different angles, not the least from the angle of health, the angle of the commodities. And of course, this is also a development initiative, and it's expected this ministry will drive all of this. How so?
Thank you so much for having me. So I think I would like to congratulate the ministry and the minister for how far they've come. He mentioned the National Livestock Growth Acceleration Strategy, which is the plan, the national plan. And I think it's a rallying point, for the private sector and the government to work together. Because we're talking about reforms, reforms from subsistence to commercialization. And two things are critical in that perspective. So one is access to markets and then access to finance, right? Now, I'm project director of the Nigerian Red Meat Partnership. So this is a creation by CDI, basically to look at the opportunities, that are there within the domestic market, but also in the export market. We're tracking the importation of feed, food, and livestock products into key markets. So we're looking at the European market, Middle East market, and the China market. And if you don't mind, I just read some numbers, some data, just to give us some perspective of what we're talking about. So if you look at, these are data from the International Trade Center, Geneva. In 2023, live sheep import into the Middle East was $1.8 billion, 1.8. And for Europe, $300 million. For China, $13.2 billion. Aggregate, if you aggregate all these three numbers, it comes to 2.1. So if you look at goat, live goat, and then red meat, bovine, ovine. So bovine is sheep. Mm-hmm. I mean, bovine is cattle. Ovine is sheep, right? If you look at these three markets, Middle East, EU, and China, for red meat, which is bovine cattle, it's $21 billion. And we are not playing in this market.
All right, because I was going to say, what's our stake in all of this?
Yeah. But if you look at those who are supplying this market, you see Somalia, you see Kenya, you see Ethiopia, of course you see Botswana, Namibia. We are bigger than some of these countries. Why are we not in this market? So we are looking at working with the government in partnership to address the constraint. There are constraints right now. If you go to the website of the Saudi Food and Drug Authority, you see clearly written, red meat from Nigeria not accepted. Why? Because we used to have disease problems, but we can correct that. So working with the government now to correct that status so that we can meet international compliance requirements that allows us to produce meat and then export into this market. And we've gone ahead to set targets. And if this 8 feed fodder livestock products, we can get up to $5.5 billion if we put our hearts together. And that's a lot. If you look at the job creation from that, that's a lot. If you translate that to Naira, it comes to about 8.2 trillion Naira. In 2-3 years, we can begin to achieve that, working in partnership between the private sector and the government. And I think it's very achievable. So this is the goal, this is the target. And the growth acceleration strategy gives us that platform to work together as a team. Public sector, private sector, putting strengths together, addressing the constraints, and going after markets, take market shares so that we can bring jobs. What Nigerians need right now are jobs, good jobs. And if we can achieve that, then I think we'll have a lot of, solution for the restiveness that we see all around the country.
Now, without prejudice to some of the constraints that you've talked about, Minister, I am seeing that the very basic of the constraint and challenge you'd obviously face in this would be acceptance of not just the strategy, but the entire gamut of the creation and the stay of the ministry. How have you surmounted that? Because as I said earlier on, there were those who said you do not need a Ministry of Cattle when, of course, livestock could be taken care of under the traditional agriculture ministry. So how have you surmounted that major hurdle?
There's a misconception here. Because the cattle is the largest ruminant, it is at the visible end. That is what you see. They are very ambitious. And because we have harvested a lot of pains from the cattle sector of the livestock industry, in terms of farmer the crisis, cattle rustling, a lot of security issues arising from there. People think when you mention livestock, you're talking about cattle. No, it is not. Under the old order, there were only 2 technical departments responsible for taking care of 58 million heads of cattle, 124 million sheep, 60 million goats, 9.3 million pigs, almost 600 million poultry, 410,000 donkeys, 700,000 camels. Only 2 departments. These are the facts. We've had 417 grazing reserves that were buried in history. This is a sector that employs more than 20 million people. Every household in Nigerian rural area has one form of livestock or the other. It is the only source of animal protein for Nigeria: meat, eggs, and milk. Now, this sector has been neglected for 64 years. And here comes a leader with a strategic vision who has evaluated that sector and found that it is worth $32 billion, yet out of the formal sector, yet steeped in traditional animal husbandry with indigenous cattle breed that are suboptimally performing, a source, probably a liability to the nation, not an asset. He has now come and seen that vision and has practicalized that vision. The dream is now a reality. He has created that ministry. And that ministry, I have given you the statistics. From the honeybee to rabbit, pig, poultry, goats, sheep, cattle, donkey, horses, camels. These are the animals under that ministry. So transforming that ministry from traditional holding, modernizing it, making it resilient and vibrant, unlocking the potentials, means that it is available for shared prosperity for everybody. Contrast this one with the Ruga policy that was only addressing cattle. Right. And that's the fixation people have.
Okay.
That is the fixation people have. So, free your mind and shackle your mental faculties. And then look at what I have just said. Professor Maikano just mentioned about export of fodder. Today, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, UAE, they want fodder from Nigeria. They want us to grow pasture, commercial cultivation, and send it on foreign exchange. Many people have never heard of even special fodder, special grass meant for animals only. Right. They always thought that animals roam the countryside with a boy, with a stick, moving from point A to point B, going to those bin, eating nylon bags, moving to brown fields where you don't even have a toothpick, with hundreds of animals overgrazing the countryside, degrading the environment. Is this what you call livestock? Mustafa said no. Under this Renewed Hope Agenda, we have a bigger vision. And that is what we are addressing today.
Well, in addition to the discussion in the studio, we have other reports. And let's see this one from Ibadan.
A key aspect of the reforms is to ensure that abattoirs have hygienic facilities for cow meat processing. A visit to abattoir in Ibadan Central Amusu Village, Akinyele Local Government, Oyo State, revealed standard facilities that meet expectations of a standard abattoir. Although NTA news crew was denied access to the inner workings of the facility, information gathered reveals standard practice in operations. The abattoir has necessary facilities that ensure a hygienic environment for cow meat processing and safe consumption.
The facility is a, international standard because we have the manual and then we have the mechanical. The place is, is very hygienic because a lot of staff were there, the veterinary doctors were there, the ordinary staff for, cleaning the environment, they were there. We didn't use the half of the facility for even the manual because there was big slaughterhouse, 2 big slaughterhouses there.
The president of the Veterinary Doctors Association, Dr. Arokoyo, emphasized the importance of hygienic abattoirs for safe beef consumption. He commended the Oyo State government for collaborating with the private sector to standardize abattoirs. He therefore stressed the need for hygienic abattoirs to guarantee safe consumption of beef and promotion of sector's growth.
And when we say abattoir, we're talking of proper structure that has technology, evisceration center, lairage, and the likes of it. When you have all of these things in place, killing boxes, slaughter boxes, rather, we are referring to an abattoir. The vet can tell you this animal has TB, but when there is no pre-mortem inspection and there is no post-mortem inspection, we keep eating unsafe animals. The safety of these animals is our safety. No abattoir if there is no vet.
Yes. They also noted that all the slaughtered cows in the state passed veterinary inspection to ensure cow meat distributed to market are healthy for eating. In Ibadan, Wasiu Rov.
Our next report is from Eula.
Adamawa State has 32 gazetted and 37 ungazetted grazing reserves land with 121,170 hectares of land as well as 12 international, national and local cattle routes. The grazing reserves, especially in Gongo-Shimayo Belwa local government area, Jibiro in Gire and Sarau in Maiha local government areas are fully equipped with modern facilities which cattle rearers are expected to take advantage of to enhance productivity. Transformations of grazing reserve by government at all levels will no doubt improve food security, resolve long-standing farmers and herders clash, as well as improve livestock production in the society. The headers also applauded government at all levels for the mass vaccination of animals and provision of facilities in some grazing reserves in Adamawa State, appealing for construction of more dams, cattle routes, among others, for the overall development of livestock sector.
We appeal to government to provide more grazing lands to us. We appeal to government at all levels to construct more dams, cattle routes, and schools.
The Adamawa State government has reiterated its commitment to continue to collaborate with the federal government to provide basic incentives across all grazing areas and sensitize the herders to migrate from nomadic grazing to modern grazing infrastructure for the socio-economic development of the country.
Federal government have carved out Federal Ministry of Livestock, Federal Ministry of Agriculture. It have its minister. So the advocacy on how to educate our herdsmen to settle down, to bring harmony, and to make sure that modern techniques of livestock farming have been introduced is ongoing now. Committees have been set. One, there is a resolution on conflict resolution committee, who is already taking advocacy on how to be in harmony between the herders and the farmers.
Dr. Yusuf Peter speak on the animals' transmissible diseases and its preventive measures.
Diseases like tuberculosis also, you prevent it by vaccinating the cattle population. And also, if you are to prevent it or controlling it from entering human population or from being transmitted to other animals, you have to find a way of controlling it. And how do you control it? You have to, first of all, either isolate the infected animals, then you treat.
In Dola, Abdullah Badalwa.
Well, back here in the studio, Minister, you did mention about the effort that is going into rehabilitating those grazing reserves. Let's begin with the Wase one. And tell us a little bit more about it. It's about 100,000 hectares. And what? Well, obviously, people will be looking at that as a model. And then what about the others, where they are located? What happens? Some of these areas have fallen to other developments. What would you do?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Like I said, we have inventorized all the grazing reserves across the country. We have them digitized with a click of button on a system. You zoom in, you see the topography, you see water bodies, you see footpaths, you see settlement. If there are farmlands there, you see them, you see the forest like, you see everything. And for us, that is sufficient enough. However, our plan today is to do all those rehabilitations. It cannot happen in one day. It cannot happen in 1 year, but we have started. We have started in Wase, and Wase for all has a very, very conducive atmosphere. Flatland, 22 earth dams, very rich soil. In fact, some of those areas have not been farmed in more than 50 years. The grazing reserve was gazetted in 1965, and between then and now, there has never been any concerted effort like is happening today under this administration. We are working with the Benue State government, and for every rehabilitation, for every effort we are going to do in each of the grazing reserves, we are going to work with the subnational governments and the local governments, the traditional council, the pastoral organizations, and other stakeholders. It's not a solo effort. Now, the model we have designed is one, we will do internal road networks so that every part of that 100,000 hectares in Wase will be accessible. We will do massive pasture cultivation. To do that, we will involve the pastoralists. We are also going to involve commercial pasture producers to come into Wase and start demonstrating how to grow pasture, because it's a grazing reserve. So pasture is part of grazing. So if anybody wants to do large-scale pasture cultivation, commercial scale, we will give him that land on lease basis. And by that, the pasture can be available for the pastoralists to also buy. They can also pick up the know-how, domicile the knowledge there. Apart from that, The earth dumps there will not be used for dry season pasture irrigation, so that once animals are there, they would have no reason to go out to look for feed and fodder elsewhere. Number 3, once those animals are there, they are going to be ear tagged with chips, and they will be geolocated, so that once animals are identified to be in Wase, they will have no reason to leave Wase to Kanam, for instance. While there, we will also embark on radical breed improvement, genetics upgrade, after taking the data. Part of the infrastructure we are doing, we will build veterinary clinics in that Wase Grazing Reserve. We will also build primary health care for herders' families and anybody who is keeping livestock and is moving into Wase. We will also build primary schools for school-going children to access Western modern education. There will be solarized boreholes for watering the animals as well as the herders and their families. The earth dams are not to water the animals. They are strictly for irrigation, because most animal waterborne diseases come from stagnant water. So we are going to be emphatic about that. So this is the model we are designing. And to power their houses, to power the irrigation, we are going to rely on renewable energy, because we want to be climate smart. This is what we are advancing. And we do believe that where you have, for instance, 50,000 heads of cattle in Wase, assumption, we have to calculate the carrying capacity. There will be dairy processors. There will be a natural attraction, because you probably cannot take that quantity of milk into Wase. We want processors to come and set up there. Equally, modular abattoirs for red meat will also be set up there. Where you have abattoir for red meat, once you process the bulls, you have hide and skin. Therefore, we will sign a takeoff agreement for a leather working business to offtake those hides and skin, high quality hides and skin, that we will be very jealous. We will jealously guard them so that they don't find them in
Morocco.
Not in Morocco, so that they don't turn into pomo.
Well, that's
those who want to eat pomo can do that.
Well,
but we want to start by insisting that high quality hides coming from there should go to leather works, so that we can make shoes, we can make belts, we can create more jobs.
Okay, that's one issue we'll deal with later in the course of this program, and the question of hides and skin, and well, your reference to saving them from the tables, as Promo and the rest of them. Let's come to Professor Maikanu, and here is, now we have seen these grazing reserves being rehabilitated and put to the use which the minister has enumerated. But what we'd like to know at this point is the question of the feed and fodder, potential that Nigeria has. We've listened to him say that countries are asking for Nigeria to, grow and export to them. What is the potential, and what capacity do you think the country has as at this time?
Excellent. I'm happy that the Honorable Minister gave you a rundown of the investment they have done so far in the grazing reserves. One of the things that is very key is the fact that the georeferencing, the data that is generated, gives an insight as to carrying capacity for internal use and for the ability for external parties to come and invest. Let me give you an example. At the moment today, Nigeria have a deficit of about 12 million metric tons of feed and fodder that we need. And we have a need requirement, a demand requirement from foreign market of over 100 million metric tons. If you look at the number of grazing reserves that are now being intervened by this present government, and with the structures put in place, it gives an investor an opportunity to know where to put his money. For instance, what they have done is beyond just what an honorable minister has mentioned. It gives you information about what I will call agronomic requirements of each of those areas, which enables you to at least grow the specific kind of pasture that you want. So we're also working with the ministry, I'll fully align with them, to see how we can mobilize partners, farmers, investors, using the CDI, to do that. Let me shock you. We had, in the last couple of months, a deal room arrangement that were able to raise $160 million in deal between people who are interested to invest in feed and fodder and those who are interested in producing it. So we are working with the government, hope because the minister has always been very supportive with us, to see how we can be able to, because most of this is at the subnational level, like he has mentioned. As you can see, has discussed all over Nigeria, meeting with governors from Benue to Plateau and the rest of it. He is softening the grounds for this kind of private sector-led participation. Government can't do it alone. So we are leveraging on those the initial activities they have done. We have been able to, for instance, like I told you, for the very first time, we have a total outlook of every part of Nigeria as far as feed and fodder is concerned.
Already you have a shortfall.
Yes.
Speaking of your domestic needs.
Yes.
And here you are with a great potential to export.
Sure.
And so how quickly can you get up and running and, you know, be sufficient before export, or would the export now be of more consideration than local sufficiency?
I like this, putting the first last or the last first. That's a very good consideration. The idea is we are looking at the local market, but with international foresight. We don't want to limit our standards to just the local markets. We want to be able to begin to see that we have that large portion that Mr. Roland has mentioned at the export markets, while we help flow back whatever resources, whatever opportunities that come from there to supporting the local markets. That is one. Two, we are working with universities. We are working with research centers. We are working with farmer groups. We are mobilizing every other party, any sector player that can take advantage of this opportunity. We are doing mass mobilization. The opportunity there is that when we invest in feed and fodder, there's what I call multiplier effects. First, for us as citizens, we need to have a Nigeria that's endowed with people that are not stunted. And the only way we can achieve that is to have more of the animal protein foods supplied on our tables. Secondly, we are also seeing a country where greater part of our milk is defatted. We can only achieve a better milk supply, which our animals have. They have the best milk. The A2 protein milk can only be gotten from our own local cattle, what is a gift from God. Now, if we are able to harvest those opportunities, we are collating, bringing all the sector players, the financing houses, the farmers group, the investors in it, so that together we can focus on growing this, first to meet our, close up our gap of 10 million metric tons, and then think about export potentials. And one of the things that we're trying to do, working with the ministry, is to leverage on funding that is accessible and to a common farmer in Nigeria, because that's the greatest challenge. The Honorable Minister has mentioned that we already have opportunity for fields. They are supporting us with technology. The research centers are there working, but the investment component of it requires that the common farmer must be able to access funds in a digital format. He can be able to see the business as profitable as possible. That will be the pull.
Right, already messages, tweets have been coming in on the subject matter, and we'll just look at a few of them as we progress. We have this from @Senator _Dambam, and he says, what are the potential of Nigeria as a country in the livestock production? That's it. And of course, we also have Ifoma who says, what policies or initiatives can the Nigerian government implement to support the livestock development? And that's what we've been talking about. And also, how can livestock development contribute to food security in Nigeria? The third of this, before we just come back to Professor Sharubutu, is at Tommy 42 Xavier, and it says, what key challenges hinder livestock sector reforms, and how can sustainable strategies address them while balancing economic, environmental, and social needs? And that's packed full.
Cyril, one of the key or the cardinal principle or the achievables of the renewed hope agenda is economic diversification. In the livestock industry, you can see that there will be a lot of job creation. From statistics, we have not less than 300,000 animal scientists in this country. We have about 100,000 veterinary doctors in this country. These veterinarians cannot have job anywhere if they do not actually invest into the private sector. The grazing reserve so created is supposed to have a component for further development. It's also supposed to have the livestock service centers. These livestock service centers will provide for veterinary clinics and, of course, the administration of medicaments as far as livestock are concerned. So you can see that job creation is one cardinal achievement that this ministry is going with. As it is now, we import not less than 200 billion naira of drugs and medicaments into this country, including biologicals. Now, when this ministry comes into full-fledged operation in terms of the facilities they want to provide, just recently, I monitored the movement of the Honorable Minister for Livestock Development in Jos. He went there, he saw the facilities that were there in the National Veterinary Research Institute, and he looked at the potentials to which these vaccines can be produced, thereby stopping us from importation of these vaccines from neighboring countries. By the way, the vaccines that are being processed in this country or produced in this country are based on the strengths of the organisms that are prevalent here. But when we go to bring them from outside, it becomes a different thing altogether. Again, I remember that the provost of the Federal College of Land Resources, who briefed the Honorable Minister on the courses that are being mounted, he also mentioned one key course that is needed, and that is that of pasture development. And I know that the Honorable Minister was so enticed with the fact that we are beginning to introduce pasture agronomy into our system, because pasture agronomy has been extinct in this country. No college, no university actually goes into the practical, training of students in that aspect. There are also collateral, advantages. The growth of industries within the surrounding environment is also very, very important. And if you look at, for example, there was a grazing reserve, it will be able to attract pharmaceutical industries into that place. It will be able to attract, just like the minister says, abattoir, schools, education. The insecurity we have been having in this country associated with the farmers and the herders class all boils down to the fact that the educational development of some of these pastoralists has not been there. Of course, there were attempts to put in pastoral or nomadic education, but those nomadic education has actually collapsed because of the constant movement of these herders from one place to the other. With the development of a grazing reserve, you will find out that these schools will be well established, the pastoralists will settle in that place, and by so doing, you will find out that they will be better educated, and there will be more cohesion, social interaction between those that are input providers as well as the producer. So Nigeria will begin to consolidate and become one entity, so to say, so that one person does not look at the threat of another person as being detrimental to his own development. And by and large, you find out that some of the social vices that we're experiencing in this country will not be there. So I want to think that the negative perception about the development or the creation of that industry should be done away with. Of course, we know that Nigerians, in most cases, they don't like the introduction of new things. Anything that comes up, people will begin to think of ethnicity, they will begin to think of tribe, religion, and all the rest. But this is a ministry that, from the start, from the plan we are seeing, is already a ministry that is trying to bring everybody to be involved. If your own environment is an environment that is good for cattle production, you do it. If your environment is for ovine, you do it. If your environment is for poultry, you do it. Even snail production. These are all components that the livestock industry, the livestock ministry is expected to come.
When we took the tweets, there was a particular one which was specifically addressed to you, and I'm seeing that now, still from Atonika Ume, and it says, how can veterinary doctors contribute to tackling issues such as antimicrobial resistance and zoonotic diseases in Nigeria?
Yeah, you see, some of these microbial resistance come from quackery in terms of how the veterinary doctors actually manage, medicaments. I know that the Veterinary Council of Nigeria is a department, it's an agency under the Federal Ministry of Livestock Development. And the Veterinary Council of Nigeria has to do with the regulation of the practice of veterinary medicine. The issue of resistance as well as residue has to do with the poor management of drugs, poor management of diseases. And I can tell you that the Veterinary Council of Nigeria is ever armed. We just saw a clip that the president of the Veterinary Medical Association is there. I know that he has been working very closely together with the Ministry of Livestock Development. The Nigerian Veterinary Medical Association is one organization that has been educating the pastoralists as far as livestock is concerned. Self-medication is something that is going. The ministry also has a department for veterinary and pest control service directly under the office of the Honorable Minister. I know that this is a department that has to do with policy development in terms of medicaments. So these are areas that we can go into. Remember that before the creation of this department, just like the Honorable Minister mentioned, there are a lot of states that do not actually have a Ministry of Livestock Development, no Department of Veterinary. Some of these states have only one veterinarian in practice. Some have two, some have three. But, it's becoming competitive, highly competitive now. States in the northeastern part of this country have 150 doctors, 200, and those in the southern part also have this. And if you look at the plan that has been put in place by the ministry that I have the opportunity to read, there is this urge for the fact that we must train more veterinarians, train more animal production specialists, train more livestock superintendents and animal health and production technology. Once we have this, and the states happen to recruit some of them for regulatory purposes, and the association also open up this field for them to be able to move into this grazing reserve, for them to practice their profession, well regulated by the Veterinary Council of Nigeria, the issue of drug residues as well as antimicrobial resistance will be a thing of the past.
At this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, there'll be more on the development and reforms in the livestock industry. We would, of course, take more tweets, and hopefully your calls will come through. So stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Right, so thanks for staying with us. And this segment also, in addition to the tweets, we would expect that your calls will come through. The numbers to call will be on your screen. You can take advantage of those. And, also remember what we always say, that you turn down the volume of your TV set to avoid the hurlback or the echo. That's when your call gets through. So we expect to get some more calls from you in addition to the tweets. But we have another in our series of reports here, and this one is from Uyo.
Livestock farming is a significant part of the Nigerian agricultural sector, contributing to food security, employment, and the economy. In Nigeria, research shows that the livestock sector currently contributes 17% to the agricultural gross domestic product (GDP), 5% to the national GDP, and accounts for 36.5% of protein consumption. The Nigerian livestock industry is therefore valued as a 30 trillion naira national asset with a projected growth rate of 1.2% year-on-year through to 2026. However, the sector currently faces significant challenges that hinder its growth and stability, some of which include inadequate finance, high cost of feed, and animal diseases.
Livestock diseases that are common now, prevalent in the pig production is African swine fever. We have PPR for goat, Newcastle, like we had recently in our farm, fowl typhoid, pox, avian flu, coccidiosis, and for poultry, mastitis is common in cattle. Those are the most common ones that we see over here.
Disease outbreaks, to a large extent, can have devastating effects on livestock populations and undermine sustainable management efforts. Therefore, how can they be tackled?
It is important that this be monitored and then infected animals are eliminated. Another preventive measure is to vaccinate the animals to prevent this. And then, of course, to call animals that are infected, monitor and restrict movement of animals, and that will help, to prevent the infection. Again, another major way of identifying and preventing this is in the abattoirs, in the slaughter slabs, where the animals are inspected before they are killed, pre-mortem inspection, then post-mortem inspection. When they are, then the animals are looked at. You identify if there are any signs.
Experts agree that investing in veterinary services, disease surveillance, and vaccination programs can help prevent and control diseases, leading to improved productivity. In Uyo, Umar Basidate.
Right, back here, let's go over to Mr. Roland Oro. And as you were speaking and reeling out the statistics from that, I was reminded of a particular period in the history of Nigeria. Mercifully, that's gone for now, where Nigeria had to import meat to this country. You can recall that. And so when you speak about being excited about the National Livestock Growth Acceleration Strategy and how your partnership was willing to key in here, what I'm looking at is what is the potential of this country in terms of the red meat that's produced here, and are you looking at a situation where within a period we could now begin to be one of those countries that would contribute to this billion-dollar business with other countries that you talked about?
Yeah,
when is that happening?
If you look at Botswana, for instance, I'm sure we're all familiar with Botswana. You have the Botswana Meat Commission. That's their major foreign exchange earner. And we're talking about diversifying our economy from crude oil to non-oil export, which is the focus of this administration. So I think that this is a very clear opportunity. We talked about the domestic market. There's a shortfall in feed and fodder, 12 million metric tons. These are all markets. The export market is there. For instance, UAE has over 6 million animals. They don't grow pasture. They import pasture, and they can't even imagine. They can't even understand why they have to import pasture from Eastern Europe, from North America, when nearby they can get pasture from Africa. I mean, I made a company in the UAE in 2023. This company they are the largest traders of alfalfa on the planet. Yeah, and they say, look, we need roots grass. Can you give us roots grass? And we came back, checked with NAPRI, and they told me, look, roots grass is grown all over the country.
Okay.
We did samples in Niger, sent to them. It exceeded their expectations. So we can actually penetrate these markets.
Let me ask you to pause a while and let's take in this call that's coming through from Mohammed, calling in from Abuja. Hello, Mohammed, go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Mr. President.
Right.
Yesterday.
Go on.
My question to the minister. Hello?
Yes, go ahead. The minister is listening.
All right, I have a couple of questions to the minister. He has been doing a very wonderful program in his ministry, but I actually want to, as a butcher in Abuja, I'm a butcher residing in Abuja precisely, and I actually want to ask, what is the ministry doing about having a very hygiene, standard, modern abattoirs in Abuja? Because I have not had any, in this course of discussion, I have not had anything mentioned as something that's to do with abattoir. Then secondly again, I actually want to advise that most butchers in Abuja are having challenges of bringing in cows. We don't know, they are looking very scarce, and which resulted to the high rate of prices going high. So what is the ministry doing in saying that we have huge availability of cow, maybe in a couple of years to come? Because with the way things are going in Abuja, particularly, having cows is a very huge challenge. So what is the ministry going to do going forward? Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Mohammed. Well, Minister, you have...
Okay, thank you, Mohammed, for calling. Thank you for finding this program worthy. Thank you for listening to us. And thank you for the engagement. Regarding the abattoir, of course, we have Mr. Roland here. You will agree with me that today we have very few abattoirs in the country. We are actually doing an inventory of all the abattoirs in the country, not just an inventory, also to evaluate their state of functionality or otherwise. This is what we are doing, and we are working with the National Butchers Association and the proprietors of these abattoirs. Remember, most of the modern abattoirs today are in private hands, and we want them to remain there. However, the interface here is to be able, to enforce sanitary and phytosanitary mandates, so that the processing, the hygienic conditions will be obtained that will be at par with international standards. So this is what we are doing, and very soon we'll come out with a policy in that regard. We do know that there are a lot of abattoirs coming up today in the country. Here in Abuja, there are one is in Idu, another one in Benue. I've spoken to the subnational there. I'm just coming from Plateau. They are building one for bulls, 500 bulls capacity, another one for pigs, 500 pigs capacity, and there are so many all over the place. We are taking inventory of this, and we are going to work with the subnationals and the operators of these abattoirs to make sure that the minimum standards are obtained, so that alone will guarantee our access to the international market. But that, of course, one condition. The other condition is to be able to manage the endemic diseases all across the country. And here we are going to create disease-free compartments and disease-free zones that will be internationally certified, so that we can airlift our red meat from those zones into the global market. The issue of scarcity of bulls in the country, just do know that the characteristics of our herd are still natural. There is natural servicing, there is natural birth, and very, very slow growth because of the poor genetic limitation. Let me give you an example. The breeding age of a heifer in the country today, when I mean a heifer, I mean a female cow. Some people don't know about all these distinctions. It's about 3.5 years. That's her first breeding. Gestation period is 9 months, 285 days. Now, if you bring in superior genetics, and that's what we are going to do. We have already had advanced discussions with some people out of the country where we are going to do one, artificial insemination. But The bigger high end, technically, is to do embryo transfer. Now, when you have embryo transfer here, after calving, that is, the mother gives birth to a calf, that calf will gain, under good management, minimum 1.2 kg body weight every day. By the time that calf is about 15 months, she will be ready to be bred. Her first calving will be at 22 months, while our own calves will breed by the age of 4. So you can see that the multiplication rate, the rate of increase of our national herd is much slower. Secondly, if you look at the weight of a bull, our bulls, because of the slow rate of growth, genetics, lack of feed and fodder, the drudgery of having to work to look for what to eat, the endemic diseases, poor husbandry conditions, of course it's not their fault. It is the fault of us, you and I, that are keeping those animals. We are not giving them the best. But those bulls grow very slowly. We slaughter them by the time they are 6 or 7. These are athletes. We are not eating meat. We are eating muscles. That is the definition. So we want to bring superior breeds. We will cross them with our own so that we get marbling, softer meat with distributed fats. And they will be slaughtered at a prime age of 30 months. By that 30 months, they would have hit minimum 500 kg. Ours, slow grow rate, muscles, at 5 years, you are carrying an animal for 5 years, no milk, no calf, and then you slaughter muzzles. It's not the fault of the animals.
Okay.
It is the fault of us, the managers of those animals. Right. We are the ones to be taken to the guillotine, not those animals. Now that we have discovered these limitations, this ministry is up. We have rolled our sleeves. We have belted ourselves. We are going into massive, aggressive genetic improvement.
Okay,
so that our animals begin to breed at a much younger age, which is therefore going to be very safe. We will invest in fodder so that they don't get stunted. Animals also get stunted. It's not only human children. They get stunted. Our animals are stunted. So that, again, we stop them from becoming athletes. Nobody takes a cow to a marathon race.
All right. We have another caller on the line, Emmanuel from Bauchi. Emmanuel, are you there? Thanks for calling in. Go ahead. Emmanuel, turn down the volume of your TV set. Right. Yes.
I want to ask a question.
Can you turn down the volume of your TV? I can hear the hurlback.
I want to ask a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Are you hearing me, sir?
Go ahead with your question.
Yes, are you hearing me, sir?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, my question goes like this. So, like me, I'm a beginner, and I want to establish how to train this broilers that produce eggs. So, that ministry there, they have any provision for assist or direction how to start the production for broilers?
All right. Thank you, Emmanuel. Your question borders on what the ministry has in terms of poultry, right? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Emmanuel from Bauchi. A little correction there. Broilers are birds for meat. If you want eggs, you want layers. So that's just the correction I want to make. And thank you very much for showing interest in the livestock sector, in the livestock value chain. We will work with you. But at the moment, what I advise you to do is, you are calling from Bauchi, locate the headquarters of the Bauchi branch of Poultry Associations of Nigeria, get registered. I'm sure the senior members will have enough literature, documents, and will do hand-holding practically to advise you on how to start a poultry business. I want to advise that think big but start small, so that you learn on a smaller scale before you now get your hands, well sharpened, your mind well sharpened, and you can go into large scale gradually. So this is my advice. link up with the Bauchi State chapter of Poultry Association of Nigeria. They can do the unholding for you and give you all the necessary advice that you require, and probably they'll also link you with some financiers who will assist you financially to set up your business. You are welcome. Hope to see you in one of these days when the PAN of Nigeria will be holding their congresses. Thank you and good luck.
Maybe
Right.
sir, if we can also, I wanted to say that Bauchi has a Ministry of Livestock also. You can actually go to the Livestock Department of the Ministry of Livestock in Bauchi to contact some of the extension agents there.
All right. As another caller on the line, Dr. Salisu, he says from Kaduna. Hello, Dr. Salisu, Can you go ahead? Go right ahead.
Hello, sir.
Go right.
Hello.
Yes. Yes, Doctor. Yes.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Go ahead.
I'm actually extending my greetings to the Honorable Minister, actually from my state, and also Professor Sharubutu, which is my professor, Sojon, actually. I want to appreciate a professor because a very hard-working professor, and also the minister too. I am a resident of Kaduna State, and the minister has been working hard, and he actually has a farm called Zaid Farm. I was once in the farm too, bought a bull. So he's a very hard-working minister. Professor, actually you have done a lot that has to do with anything that has to do with livestock so much. You have your history in Kaduna, and I've seen you personally with the time I bought bull in your farm, 2016, with son of Mojibo, and we bought a bull from the farm then. So I appreciate you, sir. I appreciate you. You have helped veterinarians in getting jobs in very much verification and so on and so forth. So I have a concern actually. I have to even tell my wife that stand up, let's watch this program. She said, I'm sleeping because I'm tired of calling. Nobody picks my phone.
Yes, Dr. Salisu, could you just go straight to the point? Right.
I want to actually plead for veterinarian employment. Veterinarian employment, sir. Please, veterinarian employment. Actually, I've graduated. I finished my NYC in 2012, and I struggled to be employed. I wasn't. I struggled to apply for any financial assistance to see how I, with my wife as a vet doctor, we can continue to see how we can invest in livestock stuff. We were not able to get it. And actually, my thing.
All right. Dr. Salisu from Kaduna, if you just go along and listen, watch what we're discussing here tonight, you'll find a way out of your concerns. But perhaps Professor Sharubutu would emphasize on that, and that's the whole idea behind the reforms in the livestock sector, so that people like Dr. Salisu would not need to stay in the job market unemployed. So, Professor Sharubutu, the potential of, once again, we spoke about it earlier on, but please reiterate.
I think, like I said initially, that if you go through the package that has been made available to those of us who are reading the development in the Federal Ministry of Livestock Development, there is this attempt to make sure that all the state governments are carried along in their programs. There is this development of grazing reserve, the livestock service centers. They are making it now much, much easier for the private veterinarians to actually come in and work. It is not about trying to get government to give employment. It is about creating an enabling environment for them to be able to do that. There is all forms of assistance that is going to come based on my understanding of the programming of the ministry. More so, I think I'm calling on veterinarians and some of these caregivers to actually attend annual general meetings of their association. It is when you do that all the opportunities will be there. You see how people bring in drugs, how manufacturers come in there to look for agents that will be able to market their products. This is one simple area that I want to encourage you to keep in touch. But please go to the website of the Federal Ministry of Livestock Development. You'll be able to see all the information that they are giving to veterinarians, to animal health producers, as well as animal scientists.
Right, thank you. And back to the phones now. Imam from Abuja is calling in. Hello, Imam, go ahead. Imam from Abuja. Do we have Imam on the line? All right, we'll have to move on. And, well, once again, Imam, if you're on the line, go ahead with a question or comment. Right, we don't have all night. Well, we now have an Ambrose on the line. Ambrose is calling from... Hello, Ambrose. Well, perhaps we'll have to ask the callers to try again. They're having some challenges getting through. Well, at this point, I like to go into R&D and see just how much of that, because all we've been talking about here, we're talking about the reforms, and I like to know the place of R&D in all of this and what's going into it. Okay, yes, we'll come back to the phones later on, but let's talk about research and development. Yes.
Thank you, Cyril. I like to give you the opportunity to take the lead in this conversation. One of the greatest opportunities we have for the livestock sector today, with every sense of responsibility, is the fact that we have a minister that understands the dynamics of the ministry. Absolutely. You have listened to him discuss terms and terminologies that are often used. We had about 50 years of losses because our interest in the industry has remained around just two things: vaccinating our animals, annual vaccination activities, and it ends there. In spite of the fact that we are challenged by the simple reason that we're subsumed in the Ministry of Agriculture. Now we have a leader that understands that livestock is not just about vaccination, it's not just about health, it's about breeding, it's about understanding the physiology of the animal, it's about understanding that the need for pasture, it's understanding the fact that there's supposed to be a market, there's supposed to be a regulated system. Each one of them has a different approach to R&D. And I give you for sure, I remember Professor Sharubutu mentioned earlier on that our greatest achievement as an industry is the fact that VOM has been able to do vaccine and Shika has been able to do a breed of animals. That tells you the story. We're not getting it right. Okay. First, our responsibilities as researchers is to focus on our researchers and allow the venture creators to take it off from us and continue. The human medical industry, we have, you can't even kick out of the pharmaceutical industry that we have in this country today. Now, our interests and systems have been so skewed to depending on government, even as researchers. I give you an example. I had an opportunity of serving as a visiting scientist in the University of New England in Australia. We are funded basically by the farmers who are interested in having solutions to their challenges. And that's the only way we can go.
All right.
That's why we must be able to see more engagement with the private sector actors.
Okay. All right. Return to that. We have Dr. Jackson calling in from Port Harcourt. Dr. Jackson, hello.
Good morning.
Right. Go ahead, please.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, Dr. Jackson, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a very brilliant and useful topic. The ideas being read as a very brilliant one to help us as Nigeria, because hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
You're on. Just go ahead. We're listening to you.
Yeah, I said the topic being discussed this night is a very brilliant one. A nation that is protein deficient is an unhealthy nation. So be that as it may, I have a suggestion. The hardest farmers dispute that has caused a lot of harm and retrogression in the system, and the conflict has continued unabated. My suggestion is very simple.
Dr. Jackson, what is the suggestion?
I would look at it that Sambisa Forest has been a den for criminals and terrorists in this country. In order to eliminate the hardest farmers' conflict, from information available as statistics, Sambisa Forest alone can take over 10 million cows, which we don't have currently. I will suggest to the Honorable Minister to suggest this to Federal Executive Council. Let the Sambisa Forest be developed as national ranching reserve. Develop it, put schools there, take a railway down there, and then let the herders go there and breed as millions as they can breed for the consumption for the nation. After breeding, the railway the train can bring them in to the various states, and then it will be sent to the abattoir for consumption for Nigeria. This is my humble suggestion, because if we don't have a national plan for cattle rearing and ranches, and you take the ranches to various places, and then the uneducated, herders have conflict that result to human life in this country, we haven't achieved anything. But we have a space where we can do these things and do it neatly in an internationally acceptable standard. Why can't you build in it? Nigeria has a vast place like Sambisa Forest that can be developed as a national ranching reserve.
All right.
That's my submission. Dr. Mena Suchak is my name. I'm the President General of Organizing People Worldwide.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Jackson.
I think, Cyril, please, I think that it's a very nice suggestion, and I think this is where we are starting. They are starting with Wase. They are going to expand. For those states that have the land, they are making this land available for them, and they will continue to utilize it with the consent of the people. But let us know that this ministry is not just talking about cattle. The Honorable Minister for Livestock Development has made it categorically clear that they are interested in other commodities within the livestock sector. They are interested in pigs. They are interested in the West African dwarf goat. They are interested in cattle. They are in horses, in donkeys, in snails, in poultry. So this ministry is not just talking about cattle, it's also talking about that. And I will be very, very happy if Mr. Jackson can lead as a vanguard for making sure that poultry is well developed in his own community, sheep and goat is well developed, piggery is well developed. I'm definitely sure that Nigeria will be better for it.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's take this other call in. Charles calling in from Lagos. Hello, Charles.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, depending on where you're watching.
Right, go ahead.
My suggestion or my question to you guys, I'm Charles Dora, calling from Lagos. The issue that I have with livestock development is, most of the times we have issues about this cattle rearing and stuff like that. Eventually, this is important. The livestock development works in Nigeria. Is there, do you have a space where this will be I just want to know what are the measures, the control measures of this. You understand? So that was one of the questions. And secondly,
yes, Charles? Oh dear. Well,
let me respond to Charles.
Again, yes, please.
Yeah. Charles, can we do a business model so that this conflict can reduce? Nigeria is endowed agroecologically. You have an area where you are coming from where you have a lot of grasses that are grown in, and they are not utilized. Exactly. The only reason why these animals are moving is because they are in search of what? Grasses. So if you can look at this as an opportunity, cut those grasses and see how you can bring it up north, where you have these cattle and sell. We have seen that happen with the rice business, the KKK corridor, the Lagos, Kebbi corridor. Thank you, sir. We can take advantage of that, and this will help us reduce enormously these conflicts that we're having. Please, I need you to know, whether you are keeping poultry or whatever class of animal, the consideration is about feed. For cattle, their feed is grass. And that's the reason why they go. If you provide them, I assure you, they won't move anywhere.
There will be market.
There will be market. That's an opportunity. Let's create business and have peace.
All right. Now we have Mohammed from Plateau. Hello, Mohammed.
hello, sir.
Right, go ahead. Mohammed from Plateau, go ahead.
Hello? Hello?
Mohammed, go ahead.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Suresh Sowa, the Minister of Livestock and the member of the citizen. It's a very, very, very welcome system to us. We did not expect that it can even open a grazing in Plateau State, because what was happening in Plateau State, and we thank the president, the minister, and all the people of the executive. We are very, very grateful and we are very, very happy of what they are doing. May Almighty Allah help them and bless them, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Have a nice day, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mohammed. And well, for another of the tweets which has come in, and this I suppose is rather straightforward. This is @tan_GIBLE. It says, government comes up with good policies, but implementation has always been the problem, and others mere rhetorics. Would this be any different? Well, Minister.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think, of course, probably we are looking at what happened over many years, affecting many programs, many projects, etc., etc. But if you've been following this conversation tonight, you would have heard that we took off from planning, inventarization of the grazing reserves, and today we have launched one in Plateau State. And I assure you that this regime, under this leadership of Mr. President, under the Renewed Hope agenda, we will carry it to its logical conclusion. We have all the subnational governments that have identified with this. They are ready, politically and otherwise, to give the desired leadership and the muscle to make sure that this happens. We are intended to turn our livestock resources from a liability to an asset. So we are here. We will offer explanation. We are accountable to our leadership. We are accountable to Nigerians. This is going to happen, and God willing, give us time. You can see that this is going to be realized fully, gradually. slowly but surely.
Yes.
So I think, for me, I think to translate these potentials, or the reforms into real opportunities, I think three things are required. Three. One, investment. Two, investment. Three, investment. And this investment comes from public goods as the government side and the private sector side, right? We've seen the deficit in feed domestically. We've seen requests from around the world. How do we harness all of this? It's investment, and which is something that we're not doing enough. Right, and let me shock you. There is no bank that has a desk for financing livestock. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because the knowledge is not there. Even for crops, how many banks are doing financing agriculture from their balance sheet? Very limited. So I think I want to really recommend to the minister to have maybe a desk or an office within the ministry to sort of look at, connecting with financial institutions, looking around the globe, looking around the world for funding that can be made available for farmers, SMEs, so that we have access to financing to finance projects. On our part, we've created what we call the Nigerian Revenue Partnership. It's a marketplace. You have abattoir owners there. You have feedlot owners there. We've profiled all of this with the Ministry of Agriculture initially last year. We did all this profiling, we have data. The idea is to cultivate that marketplace with providing opportunities. Right now, the minister has asked us to identify 4 abattoirs to start with on the Saudi export. And that's what we're doing now, to get them up to speed with the certifications and compliance measures that is going on now, so that we can start with the pilot with these 4 abattoirs. And once people see the pilot, the success of it, more people will come on board. Right now we have pipelines of investors who wants to come in to set up abattoirs. And again, these things are capital intensive. To have a modern abattoir, $2 million, $3 million, it's capital intensive, and this is something we've not been doing well enough in the past. So I think the time is set. We just need to be deliberate, sensitize people, be deliberate, have set targets. We have a plan now, set targets, and then check our results, and then see how we can improve them as we go on.
I'm interested in the private sector participation, as you started talking about, and from a number of the questions we've had in here, a lot of attention is not going towards yes, and the matter of feed and fodder. And just as we were giving out a business idea to one of the callers, if they could think about putting their money into fodder, feed and production, and so that would, I'd like you to expand on that.
Yes, and we are lucky that we had an initial concept working with the African Union, supported by the Ministry of Livestock Development, to have some kind of a group of all value chain actors coming with their basic requirements to be supported and be driven basically from business point of view. Like he has mentioned, the main challenge has always been that looping the gaps. You have a demand here and then there's a supplier there that are not talking to each other.
Yeah.
One. The second component of it is the financing component. We have seen models working what we call the blended funding system, where, for instance, MasterCard depositing its money to support some kind of farmer groups at the lowest level so that they can have a 1-digit interest rate. What we expect and what we're hoping the minister will help us drive is the fact that there must be a very critical and deliberate process of making sure that only the right people get supported through a pool system. The reward system should be based on your productivity. That is one. Secondly, we can use the instrumentality of his office to support the processes that we are putting in place for engagement with every sector player, to link, like I said, the loops, and then continuously promote through engagement with communities, sensitizations, using your platform and the rest of it. One of the key areas that we are not taking for granted, is the fact that there's so much wealth in our communities that can be converted into a commercial venture. For instance, You go around our neighborhood, you see Melon West, Cassava West, a lot of distance going without anybody looking at it as a source of income and support to Nigerian nutritional needs. So, what we'll also expect that the ministry should focus on is to have, very importantly, a livestock extension department that's up and doing. What we have as a gap are three basics. We're not talking about the veterinary services. We're not talking about the animal science or nutrition. These are normal routine activities. Areas where we have a deficiency, even in our curriculum, in our educational system, is the area of agricultural economics, livestock economics, because it has to be based on, right from ab initio, focus should always be business-to-business relationship.
Right.
Secondly, we need to be able to see how we scale up our activities around the further production point of view. We should look at it as basically as a business activity. Whatever support the ministry would provide should be an incentive, so that the farmer begins to know that we are not giving you this for free. We are helping you develop your pasture plot. We are also encouraging you to look at it as a commercial venture to meet up with that foreign gap that we're talking about. Then, importantly too, we need to have our regulatory instruments. I'm very happy that the policy documents and the plans of the ministry captures that to a very large extent. Our regulatory system should be such that it is focused in making it amenable and soft. We don't overburden our producers. There will be what we call regulation fatigue. We must be able to synchronize these activities such that they don't take the weight on them so much. That way we'll be able to at least have a more of business-to-business participation of even the smallest level farmer. I think that's the right way. I'm happy that I have the belief and the total commitment that the minister can drive this, because I've seen the passion in him.
Right, Minister.
Yeah, I think talking about business, right from day one, this ministry is going to create the necessary environment for private sector to thrive and survive. Almost 98% of all the animal resources in this country are in private hands. We have no reason to take it away from them. What we do is to build their capacity so that they can manage it in a modern, sustainable, and profitable way. The idea today is that most livestock keepers are keeping it traditionally. Somebody has 5 goats, 10 goats. He doesn't do anything in terms of the nutritional support of those goats, particularly for the 7 dry months we have in the north. And even the West African dwarf in the south, there's very little care. Go to the village and you see chickens all over the place. And you want value out of those chickens, you want value out of those goats. Our cattle are also, driven along that line. So that is not a business model. A business model is input and output, which is absent. So it requires a lot of consciousness, a lot of sensitization for people to realize that, look, the animal I have, I can survive with it. Let me give you an example. If, for instance, you have one mama cow, F1, for instance, first cross, genetically crossed, away from us, from ours. Ours gives you maybe 2 liters. If you cross F1 with a good managing system, maybe you can hit, let's say, 10 liters. You can milk that cow for 270 days. Every day you are getting 10 liters. Assume that 1 liter is 1,500 naira. Your EOP, economics of production, probably is 3,000 per day to maintain that cow. Look at the economics, back of the envelope calculation. And we are talking of unemployment. We are talking about lack of fresh milk in the country. Take, for instance, there are 47 million primary school going children in this country. Should there be a policy that every primary school going children will take half a liter of milk? That will be approximately 23.5 million liters every day. How many cows are going to give you that? How many people are going to be involved from feed and fodder, concentrate, veterinary health services, managing the dairy farm, milking, transportation of the milk, processing, packaging, cold chain, distribution. It is huge. Come to the red meat industry. It is the same thing. If every primary school going child will take 2 sausages, each one 400 grams every day, how many bulls do you need to slaughter? The feed, the veterinary services, the abattoir operations, the cold chain transportation, the packaging, even the frying of those sausages in every primary school you had in this country. So this is what we are looking at. Pasture alone is sufficient enough to employ all the youths we have in this country. At this point today, if you take the road between Kaduna and Zaria and Kano, you see people selling hay, farm residue. In the next 2 months, those will be exhausted. But if you have youths into pasture cultivation, where you have boreholes, you have earth dam where they can irrigate and get fresh pasture, mow them, bale them, sun dry them, and then supply them. It's a continuous business. So therefore, what we are saying in the ministry today, that the herder, the livestock keeper, should be prepared to provide in situ every aspect of feed and fodder that this animal requires. We are there to do the hand holding. Number one, we do sensitization. Number two, we support you. We are asking the state government to make land available. If livestock is a business, and we agree that every business requires land as a premises, therefore ranches have to have land, dairy farms have to have land, pasture cultivation have to have land. We have sufficient land. These state governments are ready to allocate land to genuine investors. It doesn't matter where you come from. And there is no law today in the country's constitution or law book that says that only 1, 2, 3 people can do cattle, 4, 5 people can do poultry. No, it's a business, it's legitimate. You are free to get into any business you want in the livestock sector. We will assist you. We will assist you. That sector has been unlocked. We are coming up with a youth initiative in this country. We are coming up with programs to do backward integration, to supply bulls to all the upcoming abattoirs in this country. We are planning on those. Because the bulls they are going to slaughter in those abattoirs are not just driven from the bush. They have to conform to certain prescribed standards in terms of breed, in terms of age, in terms of weight, in terms of body conformation. For age, they shouldn't be more than 30 months. Now, how do you bring these bulls? There is an abattoir coming out in Abuja, 1,000 bulls every day. 365,000 bulls per year. Where are you going to get those bulls? You process them, you package the meat. This meat has to be taken to the market. And gradually, we are working towards stopping trading, reducing, controlling the trade in live animals. So that we process bulls, we process red meat, and package the meat and send it to the supermarkets. This is the way to go. This is the way to go. And that is the only way we can open up this sector for everybody to partake. In what? Multidimensional prosperity.
All right. Well, we're just about the last few minutes of this program. In fact, less than 5 minutes. And so we'll take our closing comments. And I'd start with asking you to comment on this, I think should be the last of the tweets that we have here, Mr. Oro. And this one, as you close, I'd like you to comment on it. It says, what infrastructure investments are planned to support livestock production, processing, and distribution?
Yeah, I mean, so there are several of them. The minister has mentioned what the government is doing. There's need for public sector investments like the grazing reserves, where where animals can be, fattened, so there's need for investment from the government side and also the private sector side. But I think the most important one right now is the certifications, international certifications. Because right now we can't even trade meat internationally because of the status. We need to change that status. So that infrastructure, that soft infrastructure, needs to be in place.
You spoke earlier about challenges with red meat from Nigeria, which is considered a no-no.
Yeah.
How is that being addressed?
So there's work going on now. The protocol for setting up and operating disease-free feedlot compartments is in progress. The ministry has started doing that in partnership with the private sector. So once that is up, what it requires is that if you want to produce meat for export, you just need to comply with those protocols.
Okay.
And once your facility is certified, then you can trade meat internationally. So that's a soft infrastructure that we need immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And Professor Sharubutu?
I'm sure I will not get out of this place without talking about the research and development component. And quite unfortunate that within the livestock subsector, I have mentioned that there are only 2 research institutes. There's a way we can bridge the gap, especially with the National Veterinary Research Institute, because we have about 17 or so outstations. And these outstations are well constructed, well built. And so I think the Honorable Minister will wish that he will get a proposal from us on how he is going to actually meet the need, assessment of some of these institutes. And they can easily be developed into full-fledged research centers, particularly that the law has given the minister the right to actually restructure some of these research institutes in order for us to get somewhere. But more so, the Agricultural Research Council Act has also empowered the Agricultural Research Institute to also run private enterprises in terms of spin-off companies. And I know that that of VOM has actually come up, even though it is not fully developed. This is an area that I think the Ministry of Livestock Development will be able to actually encourage. But they must do that by way of giving targets and limits, just like we used to hear that target has been given to custom, target has been given to some of these revenue generating bodies. If we're able to get some of these targets, because it will be more authoritative, something like that. Thank you.
All right. Okay, Professor Wekadu,
I think mine will always be about emphasizing the need for coordination. The ministry is so endowed with a lot of units and supporters that they need to have a way of bringing them all together to be able to benefit from their investments, their activities, so that the larger picture will be that everybody is achieving what the target of the minister is. We have quite, for the very first time, a very large investment in the livestock sector, the LPRES. We have the SAPZ. We have all of these things. We can look at also the intervention that we're having from our international partners. The idea is that when we put everybody on the radar, we're working together, we're likely to have an expanded scope of our achievement. That is one. Secondly, the minister must do everything within his powers. I'm happy I'm close by him, to engage as much as possible the private sector players.
Okay.
They must remain his focus.
All right. Last word from the minister as we close.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful evening, a wonderful engagement. Our focus here is to look at those challenges facing the livestock sector. Number one for us is feed and fodder. We are going to an aggressive cultivation of feed and fodder, not us, but private sector. We will work hand in gloves and give them all the necessary support. We will embark on a comprehensive disease surveillance and health management of the animals. Without that, we will not be able to enter the international market. Number three, we are going to address the issue of genetic improvement. We are working on a proposal to establish a number of livestock breeding centers across the country. We do believe that in the next 1.5 years, we would have not less than 1 million improved breeds through embryo transfer. That is the way to go. Okay. Science will be in the driver's seat for this transformation.
Right.
Thank you.
And it's on that note we'll leave this conversation and thank our guests very much for being here tonight. Minister Idi Mukhtar Meha, Minister of Livestock Development, Professor Arime Kanu, President Feed and Fodder Multi-Stakeholders Forum, Professor Hamidu Sharubutu, immediate past Executive Secretary of the Agricultural Research Council, and Mr. Roland Oro, Managing Director, Commodities Development Initiative and Project Director, Nigeria Red Meat Partnership. Thank you so much for being on this program.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nigeria.
Thank you.
And that's it. Next week we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.